Last week, Jamir Watkins decided to keep his name in the NBA draft, meaning one more target off the board that the Tar Heels might have gone after. Is it time to just accept that the team we got might be the team we got?
This is Tyler Hansbrough, and you're listening to Locked On Tar Heels.
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, what's up? It's Tuesday, June 3rd, 2025. Welcome into the Locked On Tar Heels podcast, the only daily North Carolina show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Schade. You're joining me at the place to get your Tar Heels content every single day. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I want to thank you for making us your first listener watch to get your Tuesday going the right way. A special shout out to all the everydayers joining us, all the members of the Locked On Tar Heels Discord, and of course the great Locked On Tar Heels insiders as well. Coming up on the show today, I first want to remind you or let you know, if you've not been with us this week, that Coach Rob and I are actually recording this show in advance because I'm away on vacation this week with my family. But as always, want to make sure that we've got content for you every day. What's up, everydayers? So, any breaking news that came out over the weekend or on Monday will not be in the show. If there is breaking news or anything like that, I will either record a short from my resort or I will hit it when I get back next week. But we all need time to get away and plug away. And so this is my way of doing that while still bringing you a lot of fun content about the Tar Heels. So what are we talking about today? Coach Rob and I are going to look at if there's any hope for anybody that Carolina might still go after for that small forward position, domestically, internationally, whatever it may be. Obviously, if somebody might have committed to Carolina between the time we record and when you're watching this, if so, hallelujah. And you can just skip forward past all this, but we doubt that's the case. After that, Coach and I are going to look more at Carolina's schedule. Last week when we recorded together, we talked about Carolina's non-con schedule. We talked about the Georgetown edition and the ACC opponents. We'll bring all that together. And then we're going to make some predictions with a nice fun game of over-under. So, Coach, let's start with some roster construction here. Last week, as we got near the NBA draft withdrawal deadline, which as a reminder to everyone was Wednesday night, just before midnight, Jamir Watkins from Florida State, somebody that I was hopeful Carolina would go after for the second offseason in a row, I might add, decided to keep his name in the NBA draft. There's no telling that Carolina would have gotten him, but Coach, I think he's somebody that the Tar Heels probably would have gone after had he pulled out. This is yet another blow of not landing personnel.
Yeah, I mean, he was definitely on the radar, and along with a handful of other guys that they're just kind of waiting to see kind of what happens. So I think at this point they're probably on plan D or E or F at this point. They've gone through plan A, plan B, plan C, and but again, it's you got to be ready for anything to happen at any moment, and I think that's why it's so important to have Jim Tanner, Buzz Peterson, the staff all ready to go when those announcements are made.
Yeah, man, it's just tough. And the thing is, sometimes, even though you have your eye on plan A or B, sometimes plan D or E or F actually end up working out better and you just didn't know it. And so we don't know what's going to come out of plan D or E or F. One of which might be just the team you've got already is the team you've got, and you just figure it out from there. And so, Coach, I want to think about that eventuality before we think about other things. I know a lot of the fan base is like frustrated and starting to lose hope because in some ways this is last offseason all over again. Coach, what would you say to fans who are frustrated or upset or disappointed that yet again, Carolina in need of someone hasn't been able to find someone, albeit this year at a different position?
Yeah, I'm frustrated too. And I think Hubert's frustrated too. And I think that's just part of this world that we're in right now. And things don't go the way we plan all the time. And there is a point of frustration of not knowing why. And we're on the outside, so we don't know. And that's why going to camp, I hope to get to ask some of these tough questions, and hopefully somebody will give me some answers. And at least I'll be able to get some clarity. But it is frustrating. We don't know exactly why. And in the past, Carolina was just, you're going to get great players. You're going to get the players that you wanted to. And the world has changed. And it's not so much about your brand or as much as where you're going or what degree you're getting. Obviously, now it's just about the money. And who can pony up the most money is getting the players. And Obviously, that's not fair. I did see something this week, the top 10 teams in college basketball with NIL money that they spent, and Carolina's probably not close to being in that top 10. So we can't really expect to get the players that some of these other teams are getting without the money, and that's just the reality. It's the sad reality of where we are right now.
Coach, I know this is something, you for your own Milligan team have dealt with some of this offseason of losing some guys you thought you might have and just haven't, I know you've said to me, like, Isaac, I might have to look at this at some point and just say, the team we got's the team we got to play with, and we got to figure it out. So whether that's you processing it for yourself or for you thinking about it as Hubert Davis, is that at some level a reality of what might have to happen here?
Yeah, we had 15 guys on the roster last year. I was done recruiting. And then I got a phone call about a kid named Anjay Tamba. And all of a sudden, you got to add the 16th guy. And then we had Elijah Breadwood, who most likely be our starting point guard next year. And he didn't sign until end of July last year. So I don't think you can say never. I think you have to look. I think right now where Carolina is, they're not just keeping an eye out. I think they're still aggressively pursuing a wing. And again, it is going to be probably somebody international. There's so many things going on that we just don't know about. There's so much red tape. There's so much behind the scenes stuff. And again, get to camp. Hopefully I get to find out more what's going on when Brad and I talk. But I just don't think that they're going to settle right now. Carolina doesn't settle. Winning the national championship is really the only good result. And if you're going to do that, you have to continue to keep padding that roster with talent until you just can't add anybody else. So I do think they're aggressively, secretly, behind the scenes trying to get somebody else.
Yeah. With that, it's, you start to look at it and you think, man, you might, who knows what you're going to luck into. I think of UConn 2 years ago, right? Like Carolina played that UConn team and Cam Spencer was so good. For UConn, folks might not remember, he was a late summer addition to UConn and somebody that is just like, oh, here we go. And UConn was making zero excuses for getting him in and doing well. And so, like, I just say all that to say, if Carolina gets somebody, I don't want the narrative to be, oh, well, Carolina just lucked into something late. It's like, no, Carolina continues to follow their leads, continues to see who they might land. It's just that it might not, it's similar to like, things might not happen in our time. They happen in the Lord's time. It's the same kind of thing here. It's going to happen when it's going to happen. It's just that domestically, the barrel seems to be pretty barren. Domestically, some of the guys that you thought might pull out of the NBA draft or you thought you might have a shot at aren't going to happen. And so really now you have to focus on that international stuff. And so, Coach, I think for me right now, my hope or my next big hope continues to be Luka Bogavac. And I think that is, for me, the main point of where I'm looking right now. Is that kind of your thinking as well?
It is. And I still think it's going to sound ridiculous, but I think we're going to get a surprise. I think it's going to be something we didn't see coming. I think that's how things are working at this time of year. When you get into June and into July, all of a sudden things become a little bit more secretive. And I think it could be something that just kind of pops up late. And but I really feel confident that they are going to add a piece. I think it's going to be a quality piece. I just don't think it's going to be somewhere where we see it coming ahead of time.
Yeah, that's a good word. Well, gang, we will continue to monitor it, see what we see. As Coach said, he's hopeful to get some clarity on all of this when he's in Chapel Hill for camp this summer, which is a reminder to me, I forgot to properly introduce Coach off the top. This is Coach Bill Robinson, the head coach of the Milligan University Buffaloes. If you're a regular with the show, you know this man inside and out, but maybe it's your first time with us and you're like, who is this guy with the lamb over his shoulder on YouTube there? Well, this is Coach Bill Robinson. He's the man, actually the head coach of my alma mater, but a 2-decade veteran of Carolina Basketball School, which is Carolina Summer Basketball Camp, basically runs the show, right, Coach? That's how it goes at this point. Coach Brad Frederick tells him what he needs, and Coach Rob makes it happen. In fact, such a baller is he with Carolina Basketball School. He's written a book about it, Carolina Basketball School History, Stories, and Drills. Get your copy now on Amazon, or if you're going to be at camp this summer, find Coach Rob and get it directly from him. That would be great. All right, Coach, we want to move from talking roster and personnel to talking about the schedule, because now we know literally everybody except for one non-con opponent and maybe one exhibition game, unless that's come out between when Coach and I are recording this and when you're seeing it or hearing it live. So we're going to talk about that, look at the schedule more in depth and in detail coming up in just a second. Right after I tell you about Monarch Money, do you ever check your bank account and wonder, like, hey, where did all my money go here? Well, between dining out, between online shopping, entertainment, whatever you're doing this summer, the trips you're going on, it's easy to lose track of it all because you're like, dude, I'm on vacation. I'm not looking at my receipts. Well, that's where Monarch Money comes in. It's your personal CFO giving you full visibility of and control over every one of your finances. What's neat is that Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts. You can look at all your investments and all of your spending in one place. So you stop just like managing your money and you actually start building wealth. And also, instead of having to juggle a bunch of apps, like having a folder with all your financial apps on it on your phone, no. It's a one-stop shopping app where Monarch can help you check finances, track your spending, and even plan out long-term goals. My wife and I, we really work hard to want to be on the same page when it comes to finances. And what I love is that Monarch Money takes the stress out of doing so. So join us. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Again, that's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year. Coach, last week you and I took a look at the conference opponents that Carolina will play in the 18 ACC games. The conference put that out on Wednesday. We also then took a look specifically at Georgetown as the 12th non-con opponent that we know of that Carolina will play. So I want to start here with the non-con as we take a bigger look at the schedule, because now, Coach, of Carolina's 31 regular season games, we now know at least something about 30 of them. The one that we don't know is who that 13th non-conference game is going to be now that the ACC schedule is reduced to 18, allowing for 2 more non-con games. Again, one will be Georgetown at some point in December, according to John Rothstein's reporting, but the rest we know: Central Arkansas, Radford, Kansas, Navy, St. Bonaventure, and Michigan State, both of those in the Fort Myers tip-off. The ACC SEC Challenge, we don't know the opponent for that yet. We expect it to be on the road. USC Upstate, Ohio State in the CBS Sports Classic, ECU, Georgetown, and NC Central. We don't know the date for that NC Central game. Coach, out of that, as you think about that, what would you like to see for that 13th and final non-con game?
Me personally, I think I'd like to see a big time game. We have enough games where you're going to see a lot of your teams, a lot of your players play. You've got games that should be blowouts at home. You should be able to get a lot of games early where you get to see a lot of people play. And I think that's what I like as a coach. You want to play some games early that are blowouts where you can see all 13, 14 guys play. I think this last game, that it needs to be an eye opener, something that will draw attention when it comes to the rankings and things like that. So I would love to see it be a big time game against a big time opponent. And with all the home games that we're talking about, I'd like to see it on the road.
Yeah.
I'd like to see it on the road. And I think, and Hubert's not scared, obviously. He'll play anybody, anywhere, anytime. So to see something, I'd love to see, and again, I'm a little bit biased here, I'd love to see a New York game with St. John's. Something, he loves to play up in New York. He loves to play in the Garden, obviously where he played as a player. But with my personal ties to St. John's right now, I would love to see the Heels go to Madison Square Garden and take on St. John's Patino.
Man, that would be fantastic. I would love that. Clearly a high-profile game. We expect St. John's to be really good again this year, and that would be pretty neat. Coach, I like your thought about it being on the road. Right now, 8 of the 12 games we know about are in Chapel Hill. The ones that aren't are the 2 Fort Myers tip-off games. We expect the ACC SEC game to be on the road because the first 2 years it's been at home, Tennessee and Alabama, and then the CBS Sports Classic down in Atlanta. And so, Coach, that makes a ton of sense to me for it to either be a true road game or a neutral site game. I'm with you. I would rather it be a true road game on a campus site rather than a neutral game. Agreed there or no?
Oh, absolutely. I think that prepares you better for conference play.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
want it to be a neutral game. I want to see it, where you're coming out of that tunnel and people are yelling and screaming at you. And I think that's the way it's going to be in conference play. And I think that much better prepares them for those games later in the season. So that would be my wish.
You know what? I like the St. John's idea. I also wouldn't mind a Big Ten opponent. And here's why I say that. You've got a Big 12 in Kansas. You're going to have an SEC opponent in the ACC SEC Challenge. And you've got a Big East opponent in Georgetown. Let's add one from the fifth power conference as well. And so it'd be pretty cool. No. We do have a Big Ten opponent, Michigan State. So,
Yeah.
So Carolina's playing at least one opponent from each of the other power conferences, Coach. That's pretty neat. And so, you know what? I retract what I was about to say, and I'm just going to ride with you in St. John's. I think that'd be pretty neat stuff there. Now, Coach, the other thing is Carolina has one other exhibition game that it can play. There was reporting, I guess a couple weeks ago now, that Carolina will play BYU true road game in Salt Lake. Actually, not a true road game because it'll be at the Delta Center where the Jazz play in Salt Lake there, but very similar to what Carolina did with Memphis last year. Now, what the NCAA is allowing to do now is you can play two high major opponents instead of, like last year, Memphis and Johnson C. Smith. Coach, if you were Hubert Davis, would you be scheduling a high major opponent, or would you schedule another non-D1 opponent?
Yeah, I know when Coach Williams was there, he loved to play in-state D2s, and it was more about the relationship. And whatever the guarantee is, obviously it's not going to be as much for an exhibition as it would be
Sure.
for a regular season game. But if you have relationships with those schools that are in North Carolina and you want to spend that money, that guarantee money in-state, let's do it with a friend. Let's do it with a D2
Yeah.
in-state and keep the money, local and keep it with your friends. And Hubert's so much into tradition. He's so much into relationships. I think this is a perfect game to keep relationships involved. So whoever they have played with some of those D2s in the area, I think that's the way it should go. I think that keeps that relationship going in a world that's getting further and further away from relationships, and where it just doesn't matter. It's all about business. It's all about winning. I'd love to see them keep that game a personal one.
I like that. And this actually, I'm gonna give a possibility that's in neither category that I mentioned. This is neither high major nor is it D2. But somebody like playing Mike Morrell and UNC Asheville to help, a community that was really hurt last year might be really interesting by the natural disaster. Which UNC Asheville an hour down the road from you there in Johnson City, Coach. But maybe there's other schools. I just don't know the entire landscape there that was affected. Or even going NAI, playing the school you used to coach at Montreat, who would have been affected by this. Well, that's probably too far down the list, but just lots of possibilities there, Coach, that I think would do something in the vein of what you were just talking about.
Yeah, I actually drove through the Asheville area last week and on the way to Charlotte to sign a kid, and the devastation is still just unbelievable. So many months later of how bad it is. And actually, my wife and I drove up to northern Indiana for a wedding last weekend and drove through the London, Kentucky area that just got hit by that tornado.
Yeah.
It's hard you can't picture it. You can't picture it till you see it. And when you see the devastation, it just makes you want to do something to help. And I'm hoping that they haven't forgot about Helene, and that's a great idea. I'd love to see them help out that Asheville community. It's still hurting.
Congrats, by the way, to Coach Morrell in Asheville, who still had a very successful season despite some less than ideal circumstances leading into the season last year. Coach, one final question about that exhibition game. One of the things I talked about, I think it was last week on the show, was I liked Carolina scheduling BYU, who is a presumptive preseason top 5-ish opponent, so that it's like you're getting the experience of playing a team that's that high up the list, but you're not having to do it with such a daunting non-con like Carolina had last year. With that in mind, what does that affect at all who you might add for that second exhibition game?
Yeah, and I don't want too high, major games, and that's why my answer is the way it is. I think the BYU and a D2 balance themselves out really well early in the year. Yeah, you want to be able to have one where you can win and play everybody, but you also want to get tested early. And BYU is a great test. Oh my gosh, they're just so talented, and the pace that they play and the way that they play, it'll feel like a tournament game. It'll feel like a national tournament game. So, and in that atmosphere, I don't care if it's an exhibition game or they could play it at 3:00 in the morning on a Tuesday, and that place is going to be packed, and that fan base is going to be cheering. It's just a wonderful place to play. So I think it's a great idea. I think it's just an awesome way to start the season, and you're going to find out an awful lot about your team when that game is finished.
All right, Coach. Well, and then I guess we haven't talked about it, but I'm anticipating that Carolina will once again play the blue-white scrimmage as well. So you really kind of get 3 exhibition games in there. So lots of fun. We'll see what's going to happen with it. Now, Coach and I are going to wrap up the show today by making some predictions about how Carolina is going to handle the schedule, both in terms of the ACC games and the non-con games, despite the fact that we don't know one of those opponents. That's fine. That's never stopped us before, and it won't stop us today. So Coach and I are going to test ourselves. We'll do that coming up here in just a second. All right, one of the favorite things to do is always just make predictions about the season ahead. And look, I know November 3rd, the first day of the season, is still today's June 3rd. August, September, October, Coach. July, August, September. I can't count. July, August, September, October, November. 5 months from today, Coach, the season starts. That's why it's so perfect to be doing what we're doing. Clearly, I did that on purpose. No, I'm just kidding. Coach, we're going to give some predictions about the schedule, and we'll build it a little bit at a time here to make it a little bit easier. So, Coach, I'm going to give you an over-under for the number of home-only the ACC games that are home-only games. As a reminder, those 7 schools are Clemson, Florida State, Louisville, Notre Dame, Pitt, Virginia Tech, and Wake Forest. Coach, over-under 5.5 wins in those 7 games.
I'm over on that. I think it's going to be 6 or 7 wins. I do. I know that Clemson and Louisville are going to be Louisville especially is going to be really good. But I still expect them out of that 7 games, 6-1 would be, or 7-0 would be something I would expect to do at home. You have to win at home. That's just the reality of it all. And it's a tough place to play. And Smith Center is obviously a very special place. So I'm going to go over on that one.
Over. Okay, I like it. ACC away only games. And Coach, as a reminder, those schools are Cal, Georgia Tech, Miami, NC State, SMU, Stanford, and Virginia. As you said last week, it's the 3 new teams. And then you also identified that it's a lot of new coaches in the other 4, including Virginia, NC State, and Miami, with Georgia Tech and third-year coach Damon Stoudemire as well. I'm going to go a little bit lower, but not too much, because we identified that we think that away-only schedule is not actually all that daunting. So, Coach, I'm going to go over under 4.5 wins on the away-only games.
I'm going to go over there again. I think it's 5-2, 6-1. Obviously, if they get it rolling, maybe a little bit better than that even. But I do think they can win 5 of those games. I just believe that. I mean, first-year staff, it's just really hard to build, especially trying to convince the team, even if they are talented, that they could beat a team like Carolina. So that Carolina on their jersey, it means a lot, and sometimes it can be the difference in a close game.
Okay, and then we wrap up the ACC conversation with home and away, which is Duke and it's Syracuse. Coach, we're setting the over/under for this one at 3.5. That's tough.
I'm under just a little bit. I do think it's probably if they can. I mean, that Duke's going to be loaded again. I do feel like we'll beat them at home. But Syracuse that trip to New York is tough, and playing in that dome is awfully, intimidating. Not intimidating. It's just hard to get used to the depth perception up there, and it's so cold and miserable. I went to college in New York. It's miserable in the winter, and it's just a tough place to play, and the travel's tough. So I would go under with that situation.
Okay. Let's switch now to the non-con, Coach. Again, as you and I record, we don't know the 13th game. Can't wait for that to come out soon. But you've got a whole bunch of bye games here: Central Arkansas, Radford, Navy, USC Upstate, ECU, and NC Central. That's 6 of the 13. And then, Coach, outside of that, the other 6 opponents we know are Kansas at home, St. Bonaventure and Michigan State in Fort Myers, an unknown SEC school, so that's a factor. Ohio State in the CBS Sports Classic, and home against Georgetown. So, Coach, I'm going to give it, obviously, again, two of the opponents we don't know. One of them we literally have no clue, and the other is an unknown SEC school. With that in mind, I'm going to go over under 10.5. That's tricky.
That is tricky. I'm going to go a little under. I think it's 9 or 10 games that they'll win out of that. And that's, again, those are some tough teams. I do think Kansas at home, it's that redemption game. We have to win that game. Ohio State in Atlanta is going to be tough. But again, a game I think we should win. Michigan State's going to be really good and tough. But I think 9 to 10 wins in that group is probably about right in my mind.
Yeah, I think so too. As you look at it, I mean, you got to assume you're going to win all 6 of those bye games, right?
Yeah.
And then that leaves Kansas, Bonaventure, Michigan State, SEC school, Ohio State, Georgetown, and then complete unknown. So if you win all 6 of those bye games, in order to get to 10, you got to win 4 of those other 7, which I would imagine let's say Carolina beats them. I'm going to call it a loss on the road in the SEC to the SEC school. We don't know who that is, but why not? And then, so that leaves Georgetown, Ohio State, Kansas, and Michigan State. I'm going to say wins over Ohio State and Georgetown, and then a 1-1 against Kansas and Michigan State in some form. So, and then you've got the complete unknown school that we don't know. So I like that. 9 or 10 wins seems about right to me, right? The SEC school in either Michigan State or Kansas. And then if it is, because you said you would love to see some really high major game on the road for that other game, which is, if that's a true road environment, that's a tough win. And so you probably take that one out. And so that puts you at 10, and then one random loss as well would be 9. So that makes a lot of sense to me as well, Coach. I'm with you there. So the away-only games in the ACC, you were over the 4.5. So let's call that 5-2 there. The home-only games in the ACC, you were over 5.5. Let's call that 6-1. You were under the home 3.5. So let's call it, even if it's 3-1, under 3.5 is correct. So I'm going to give that 3-1, Coach. Why not? Let's say one loss to Duke and beating Syracuse in both. And then you were under 10.5 for the non-con. So let's call that 10-3. If that's how that goes, Coach, Carolina in the regular season then would be 13-11 is 24-7. How do you feel about that, Coach? 24-7 all told.
When you first talked about this, I was thinking 24-7, 25-6, somewhere in there, I think is where, that to me is a really good year. And then obviously tournament team and how they do from there on out. But that's about what I think they should be at. I think 25 wins would be a huge success for obviously everybody who left through graduation in the portal and having to basically start all over again. But let's get used to it. I mean, that's what we're going to be. I mean, that's where we're looking, and we're not thinking about, recruiting guys down the line. We're thinking about, how we're going to be next year, and then we'll worry about it from there on out. But I think that's the new model and what we all have to get used to.
Yeah. I like that 24-7 we came up with. I would love to see, like, if I just gave it over under 24-7, I'd love to see Carolina hit the over with 25 or 26, like you said. And I think with a little bit less daunting schedule, I think there's going to be a lot of demand for that to be the case. Okay, guys, fun to be together today. As I said, we pre-recorded this show, so if any of what we said is a lie based on news that's come out between now and when you're watching this, sorry, it happens. That's what we do. And I'll be back to clean all that up next week when I get back from vacation. Again, if you have not bought Coach's book, Carolina Basketball School, make sure you do that so you can be up to date on everything that's happening with that. If you've not subscribed to the show on video and audio, do that so you don't miss a second of Locked On Tar Heels. If you're not part of the Discord, Locked On Tar Heels Discord, a group of over 500 Carolina fans, we'd love to see you in there. That link is in the show notes. It's a great community, and you're going to want to be part of it. If you've not joined the Locked On Tar Heels Insider Program to go deeper with the show, be an even more intimate part of it, and have some great perks, I would encourage you to join that as well. That link is also in the show notes. It's always a great day to be a Tar Heel. I'll be back with you again tomorrow. But until then, peace.